Hello and welcome again. My name is Johnny. This is Behind the Lava Lava. I'll be your host tonight. And our topic for tonight, before we go into our topic, we have a special guest with us. We have Spencer Harman. I'm going to give a few moments for him to introduce himself, tell us what he's like, likes and dislikes, and a little bit about himself. So, Spencer?
Hey, glad to be on. Thanks for having me. I'm a big fan of the podcast. So I know a lot of you guys through the Marine Corps have some ties to 29 Palms or through in-laws and whatnot. But lucky me, I actually got to grow up there. So from when I was born in Palm Springs and I was raised there until about age 13, my family moved to Tropic, Utah. I've been kind of Utah-based ever since. In and out for my adult life, I've been mainly based in Las Vegas for about 10 years, but I'm also in the Army Reserve. I've deployed a few times through that. So Las Vegas is my home, but it's like whether I'm there or not kind of depends on what the Army has me doing. Got back from my last deployment in December. I've just been staying in Utah, staying with my folks right now because I'm just trying to figure out a career path. Back in Las Vegas, I was doing a lot of security jobs, and ultimately I was a bouncer at the Wynn at the XS nightclub for about 2 years. And when I kind of needed some more, I kind of knew that job wasn't going anywhere at the time, especially because in the winter months it was pretty dead. So I actually spent a year as an OTR truck driver for a while. And so, like since this last deployment, I'm like, you know what? I don't quite want to get back to trucking or bouncing again. So I'm trying to actually use a degree because I actually got a degree at one point in media arts and animation. So literally a degree in drawing cartoons. And I figured I like truck driving a lot, but I'm like, why'd I get this degree if I don't even try to get a job there? So right now I've just been working on my portfolio and about to start applying for jobs and see if I can make something happen there. Maybe if by the end of the summer, nothing happens with that, I'll be going back to trucking.
Heck yeah. Well, folks, that's Spencer Harman. If we have any producers out there in animation, if you guys are watching, that's Spencer Harman with an H. Hit him up. Check out his stuff. So that actually works great because, I'm going to beeline right for you now, Spence, since we're talking about stereotypes. And we're going to stick to the general stereotypes here, generalized through the Polynesian community. I know our podcast usually focuses, a lot of us are Samoan. And so I'm part Tongan too, by the way. We wanted to expound on this because a lot of the stereotypes that affect us as Samoans usually encompass the entire South Pacific. So, and Spencer happened to hit a couple of the big ones. I know as Polynesians, a lot of us do, bigger in frame, end up as bouncers. And so I know we're known for the security field. Some of us have worked in it as well. And also with truck driving, because it's funny because I'm a trucker too. And so we'll get more to that. So before I go on anything else, I'm going to kick this question out to the floor. Welcome to chime in. What do you think is the biggest stereotype surrounding us Polynesians? We'll go with 3. I know there's quite a few. The top 3 that you think is when they see that type of behavior or career field or something like that, and they strictly assume, oh, they're Pacific Islander or they're Polynesian. So let's get some answers.
So I think the top one is that Samoans are big people. And in the generalized idea, when someone, especially here in the U.S., when they see a skinny Samoan and they ask, and they know that you're Samoan, they typically ask this question. If you're skinny, they'll ask this. I thought Samoans are big. They're huge. You're the smallest Samoan I've ever seen. It's funny because I've been told that I was a small Samoan for my size, and I'm 320 pounds. So in my thoughts, how do these people think we are? 500 pounds?
Well, I mean, if you ask my cousin, you guys know him as The Rock, but I just call him Dwayne. Yeah, the guy's pretty massive. So, I mean, and then my uncle Rakishi, just big people. So, I mean, 300 pounds, that's it? Come on, we can do better than that. Anybody else? I know that's a big one. I've got that a lot.
Yeah, so like the size one's a definitely a big one. And I don't know if I'm out of line for saying this, but I think even just the idea of skin color and things like that, because there's actually, what some people I don't think realize is that there's kind of a range of hues that you'll see Samoans in, because when I even think of, like, obviously I'm Afakasi, I usually am considered racially ambiguous or just straight up Halangi, but I look at my parents, my dad is my Palangi parent, my mom is from Samoa, but my dad has darker skin than my mom. It's just because my mom is a little bit lighter toned and my dad likes to go fishing and spends a lot of time outside his whole life. So my dad is the darker skinned parent, even though he's the Caucasian.
I like that. Yes, I do notice that. I don't know if it's from my tongue side, because I tend to be on the lighter side of the spectrum as well. But yeah, there is a hue range. Some of us are darker than others. My younger brothers tends to get a lot darker than me, him and my little sister. Okay, so we got size as far as body size, and then different hues of colors. Anything else, T? Let's get your input. What's a big stereotype among us Polynesians or us Islanders that we see a lot?
I don't know. Aside from the size one, I don't really have any, or at least any that I really paid any mind to that affected me. If anything, with stereotypes, it'd be within our own community, in that church. They look at you one way with long hair and tattoos and judge you extremely, or they love you no matter what on the other side of the spectrum. But as far as being stereotyped in some sort of way, maybe just being the dumb jock or some type of angry guy, I haven't really experienced too much on that end.
Okay.
Here's another stereotype. Samoans are related, and everyone's from Hawaii.
Well, I mean, if you believe in the Bible, then essentially we are all related. But we all come from the loins of Adam.
But Samoans are. Everyone's not related, though. When you think about it, we're not all related. Even though we all...
Are you talking about when everybody asks you if you know a certain Samoan once they find out?
That and people saying, oh, I'm not going to marry a Samoan because we're probably cousins.
Yeah.
But you're probably not cousins because we're not all blood related, just like all white people are not related, all black people are not related, all different races are not related, right?
It depends on how loosely you use the term related, though. Because, I mean, I remember when Obama was elected into office, there was a little 14-year-old girl or 16-year-old girl. One of her projects in high school was she linked all of the U.S. presidents to one single ancestor. And it was traced back to some Duke, old Englishman from like the 16 or 1700s. But they were able to tie in one relative all the way back to him that tied in all of the presidents together. So, I mean, the term is loosely defined. And I know in the Samoan culture, for example, even though the relation is through marriage, the consideration is still familial. So, like, for example, I have a relative who married another relative of mine, but I was related through both sides of my parent. I'm related to that person through my mom, and I'm related to the other person through my dad. And so they got married. And then their kids would say, oh, well, that's my cousin, but I have no relation to them at all through the other side or through this side or that. So they considered the marriage to be a familial relationship between us as far as the relative term is concerned. But it turns out we were just related by marriage. And that term flies around a lot. So there are times where, like, I remember I dated a couple of girls and they would say, like, oh, well, that's my auntie. That's my uncle. Well, how are you guys related? Oh, well, because that person is my aunt. I was like, oh, well, I'm related to her husband. Are you related to him? Well, no, I'm related to his wife. Okay, so we're not related at all. But that's still my auntie, though. And so the confusion gets there because we accept the whole marriage concept as familial to where we're explaining it as if we're blood related. And so there can be confusions in there through that. And then other times I know that I have a lot of people that I call my aunts that were my grandparents or my mom and dad's like best friends. Like I have a best friend I grew up with here in Utah. His name is Ivan Cardenas, and my kids call him Uncle Ivan. And for all intents and purposes, they know him as Uncle Ivan. And confusion can be moved around because as it keeps going down, oh yeah, I'm related to this person and that. So, I mean, I've encountered that in the past, and that is one stereotype to where we all consider each other family. I'm from Manua, and my dad's from Manua. And I know a lot of us, if pretty much if you're from Manua, there's a really close relation to you. through my family. And so that can be a turning point, but I'm not saying that's going to be the case all the time. I mean, that's one thing, and it could be a distributing factor. Now, before I could go on with this, I wanted to hit the triple threat here with Spencer, because you hit the three things that I know a lot of Polynesians are in, and a lot of Samoans are in: the Army, truck driving, and bouncing. That's the trifecta in my book. Every Polynesian I know has either done one, two, or three of them. Either military, private security, or transportation. And so my question to you, Spencer, is do you come across a lot of Polynesians in your multiple professions?
Yeah, I most definitely cross paths with a lot of Polynesians in those. Just like in the military, yeah. But since I haven't had a lot in the unit that I've been in, or the units I've been in, we're usually just going our opposite ways. But in bouncing, there was definitely a lot of Polynesians there. And I kind of laid low a little bit at first. I didn't want to be coming up to people like, hey, I'm Samoan too. But, it's funny because after a while, they start picking up on it. They're like, hey, what are you? I'm like, half Samoan, half white. And they're like, oh, yeah, I knew you were something. But the cool part about that was, so the club that I bounced at, there's a lot of Samoans and some Hawaiians and other Polynesians. And they were just a kind of a tight family. Like when I started bouncing again, was I bounced for about a year, then I deployed, came back and bounced again. I was kind of at a low point in my life at that time. Just got done with the divorce, was just kind of trying to figure out what I was doing in life. And these bouncers, once they kind of connected the dots and they like figured out I was Samoan, they started inviting me to hang with them. And they were like my Las Vegas family. Like I started looking forward to my work week because it was just my opportunity to just do our job at the club. And then immediately after, I just got to go hang with those guys. And so I really enjoyed that camaraderie I had in the clubbing scene with the other Polynesians.
Thanks for that. I appreciate that. I mean, it's always good to have that unit, or that essentially, I mean, I don't want to call it that because it doesn't sound very manly, but it's kind of like our support system. You find a niche, a group of friends that you vibe well with, and they help carry you through whatever, usually the good times and the bad. So back to stereotypes. Thanks for that, because especially in Vegas, I know that's a really big thing. It's a really huge profession for a lot of us Polynesians. There's a lot of big guys out there that live out there. I think my brother was bouncing out there for a while, and I had an uncle who was in the repo. He was in the repo business out there. I hear that's pretty good. So what are some of the main stereotypes that the world views through us? I'm going to ask T this question because he keeps making faces at me. I just want to hug him real quick. So T, I mean, if you were to look from the outside in to this community, what are some of the main things that you see, or main qualities you take away that you would use to stereotype Polynesians, whether Polynesian or not?
The stupid grass skirts and artificial legs and fake luau's they try to commercialize. I think like people in New Zealand and Australia, they can speak more on the stereotypes because they're more, there's a bigger ratio, especially in New Zealand when they had those raids going after Polynesians where they were really racially going after polys. Here in America, Black and Latino communities, but over there in New Zealand, straight up, our Polynesian brothers and sisters. So I think people on that side of the world, our families are more set to speak on that. Like I said, for me, myself, nothing has really impacted me as far as stereotypes because I don't dwell on things. Somebody says something dumb, I'm just moving forward. Like even we're stereotyped to be in this certain field or behave this certain way, I'm like, all right, but that doesn't affect me because that ain't me. And even if it was me, I'm not hanging on to that word. That's not what defines me. I'm just like, I don't hang on to anything anybody says. If they're not paying my bills or helping my family, they get no mind, get no rental space in my mind.
How about these stereotype that we can do the haka and dance? That's a stereotype, right? Because I can't.
I'm going to jump in on that one just because I have a very, very, very specific pet peeve with the haka. Okay. And as much as I love all of our island communities and everything like that, but come on, man, we're Samoan. We have our own war dance. Do the manusa more. Don't do the haka. You know, they always do it's the haka. He's like, oh, you're Samoan. You're going to do the haka. No, man, I'm Samoan. Our war dance is called the manusa more. So just do that. That's why our rugby team is named manusa more. Do the do our siva.
There's a certain reverence too that the Maori people, that they pay respect, and when they do that with intensity and all that, within all that ferociousness and intensity that you see, there's a respect to the ancestors that they're paying. That's why I can't stand a lot of these football teams. Or I've seen so many football teams. It's horrible. But yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, I just want to let people know that I can't dance. I used to dance when I was little, but any cultural dances growing up now, I can't dance. Can you guys dance?
You see the shirt? It's I dancing all the way. 100% dancer right here.
It's funny that you asked that because my brother Joe lives up in Eagle Mountain, and he had to do his daughters in second grade had like a cultural day, and so they asked him to like come in and just give a spiel about Samoan, where our mom comes from, and he ended up like roping me into it because Joe was like really privy to the presentations and the dancing and everything, and so I was just hanging with him the night before and say, "Hey, you don't have to, but you want to do one of the dances we used to do when we were kids? Like, it's for my daughter's class." I'm like, "Well, I can't say no if it's for my nieces." So it was just like a few weeks ago, we actually had done that in an elementary school, but I hadn't done any of those dances for years.
I mean, yeah, dude, feel free to do it. Do it. Representing culture. Nothing wrong with that. My wife and my mother-in-law, they teach my girls all the time. I got 4 daughters, and they all dance. They've been dancing since they were little, and they still do it now. And I kind of don't want them to lose it, but as much as I love my wife and my mother-in-law, they do like a generalized. So my mother-in-law comes from a dancing group background, so she's really familiar with a lot of the all the other islands, familiar with all the islands. So they're usually accustomed to doing different types of numbers representing different type of islands. And they all know me, I like to just stick to the Samoan stuff. I like the sasa, the whakapaki, and the cold one, and the whole. I prefer the Siwa more, but it's each their own. A lot of the islands of Polynesia, they all have they're very similar, but then they're all unique. And I appreciate all of the styles and dances, but at the same time, gotta root for the home team, even though there's a lot of my Tongan families here, and I love you guys too. But yeah. So and now, what about some of the stereotypes? A lot of us they tend to be very violent people, or the gangbangers. I know we see that a lot here in Utah. Or we all listen to reggae, island reggae, or rap.
That is a stereotype. Yeah,
that's a stereotype.
Samoan, especially Polynesians in gangs. Samoans, Tongans are known to be in gangs, especially in the prison system. So it does exist. But at the same time, just like any population in society, there are normal people, just like you and me, and not everyone is part of a gang. I've never been in a part of a gang. The only gang I've been in is the Samoana.
Did you walk around wearing your blue EA? Did you wave that around?
Man, Johnny, you just ruined what I was going to say. I was going to say the only gang I was in is the United States Marine Corps, but you ruined that. You ruined that by interrupting.
We're not a gang. We're a gun club. No, I knew you were going with that. But yeah, no, I mean, so like, I know with my wife's side, she's had a lot of family members that were involved in that aspect of life. And especially when they immigrated from Samoa to California, Southern California. And when I spoke to them, a lot of these the older folks, they all had the same revolving theme. And you hear it a lot too in some of the other communities. Especially with California or the West Coast gang life. It was they emulated to the United States, and they got put in a situation to where they were big, intimidating people, and they just banded together for protection back in the 70s and the early 80s because according to them, or according to one of my wife's uncles, it was you had the blacks on one side and you had the Mexicans on the other side, and they kind of fell right in the middle. And so they all just got together in a group for their own protection. And they either just kind of hovered under this group or that group, and when it was a necessity back then. And then gang life turned into something, it evolved into something different in the 90s, into the early 2000s, to where it was cool to emulate that lifestyle, especially with the emergence of hip hop and R&B and the Black culture involving that. And so I don't fault them for it, but as you continue to live a lifestyle that's not required anymore, Like it's the same as when you used to use hit and run tactics in the early, when the United States was forming in the beginning, using guerrilla warfare. Well, now we're an established army. We don't need to use guerrilla warfare tactics anymore. Just because you started in one way and it evolved into something else doesn't mean you have to remain that way. We can all progress further. And so I don't fault a lot of them, and a lot of the stereotypes involving Polynesians and the gang life was usually environmental. The kids grew up and their parents were heavily involved at that time, and they just continued the legacy to a point. And then everyone else is just copying what they see on TV, because Blood In, Blood Out was a good movie.
And that copying thing it's kind of funny how that works too, because that kind of shows you the effects of the stereotype, is how people even of the culture who know better sometimes internalize that a little bit. So like for my own experience, when we left California, and while we were in California, I was never anything close to like that. Like you 29 Palms, we're in the middle of the Mojave Desert.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not in downtown LA or nothing. We're not in Carson City. The thing is that you knew of maybe cousins or friends of cousins that maybe were part of that life. But the thing is you didn't really know a lot of the negatives about it. You just were like, oh, there's some cool guys. And then I ended up going to Tropic, Utah, middle of nowhere, out in the sticks in a beautiful community.
Tropic.
Yeah. But the thing is like what the locals know about me is that Samoan, and I'm from California. And the thing is when I got there and that was the impression, I was actually kind of like excited, because in 29 Palms, I'm like the most Palangi looking cousin. I'm the Palangi kid. And I come to Tropic, Utah, now I'm the Samoan kid. And so I started trying to play up little attributes of what I knew the stereotypes were, because I was just so excited to be considered the Samoan kid or the California kid, when really I wasn't anything like that. And it was just, that's how teenagers are anyways. They're still figuring out who they are. They're imitating who they look up to. And sometimes like, oh, they want to play up to this thing that other people think they are. So even though I was nothing even close to that stereotype, I tried to play it up a little bit, just kind of trying to like soak that up a little bit.
Yeah, it's full on assimilation. You got to improvise, adapt, and overcome. Get that Marine Corps plug in there. But yeah, I mean, overall, I don't fault anybody for it, and it just comes with the environment sometimes. And I think as long as we're out there pushing the positives of our culture, because all in all, the overall opinion of the Polynesian community is that we have a positive outlook from, or what they see from us is usually mostly positive. We're friendly. We're very outgoing. We have this vibrant culture full of energy, and we're just overall, we're nice people that shouldn't be messed with at certain times. Because I mean, even you watch TikTok videos, they talk about the Samoans. Like here's the video where they're like, oh, you fighting Samoans? You don't fight Samoans. You shoot them. You're stupid. You shouldn't fight them. Or other things like, oh man, Samoans or the Tongans or the Fijians or the Hawaiians, oh, they're such great people, man. They cook really well. They're always really friendly. But if you mess with them, that's kind of the overall theme you usually hear from a lot of people, unless they live under a rock and somewhere in the middle of North Dakota and they've never even heard of what a Samoan is, and that's different. Yeah, I mean, do you guys have anything else to add?
So how about the internal stereotypes? Like we do this to our own people. Like Samoan women choose partners who are black, and Samoan men choose partners who are white, because this topic is going around.
I think that should be its own topic. I don't know if I want to walk down that.
Man, I'm not scared. I ain't scared.
Hey, what's the saying? You love what you love, and you shouldn't be dictated by quotas or studies. You love what you love. You like, if you love the black people, or a black person, or an Indian, or an Asian, Arab, it doesn't matter. You love what you love.
Yeah, and that's a stereotype.
Keep it in the same species.
That's a stereotype that goes amongst the Samoan community, especially the men and women. They're thinking, oh, let's keep it within Samoans. But no, we don't have to do that. And if we keep doing that, maybe you'll marry your cousin, right?
That is true. I don't know. I've heard that too. I've been to Makeki, and you hear those old ladies. And you hear stuff like that, and you're just like, "Come on, man, just leave them alone." You love who you love, but I don't know. I don't think it's it's one of those traits that we can just kind of leave it behind, let it settle away as we progress further into 2023, where the Falcons might finally win the Super Bowl.
Any thoughts, Spencer?
Yeah. It's like, I guess, like you said, like you guys said, you're attracted to what you're attracted to. Yeah, I know I've never had any relationships with Polynesian girls, but it's just because when we moved to Tropic, Utah, there were no Polynesian girls. It's like, yeah, I wasn't really dating age before we went there. And so like my whole dating life was Palangi girls and Latino girls, but that was kind of it. And then I was married for like 8 years, and so dating wasn't really happening. So it's like I was just kind of grew up being attracted to Palangi girls because that's all there were around me.
There's nothing wrong with that. I went and found myself a Samoan bred that's from California who's more Samoan than me. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It's like I say, you love who you love, and you want what you want, and nobody should tell you what you want.
Well, and that being said, too, I'm going to just put this out there since I think I'm the only single guy on here. It's like I'm open to all races. Like, you got me going on, I'm not cutting you out based on race.
There we go. Equal opportunity lover, this guy.
Let me not undercut myself there.
His IG, tag his IG with this episode.
Yeah, make sure you tag Prez.
To let our audience know, please follow this Uso with his artwork if you want to commission on Facebook, Instagram. His username is Ulupopo Art. That's ULUPOPO Art. And I have a funny story. I don't know if it's funny, but it's an interesting story. At work, one of my coworkers, he was white, and he approached me, and I could sense that he was trying to relate to me because he knew that I was Samoan, but he had a family member who was married to a Tongan. So he already failed by thinking that Samoan and Tongans were the same. So anyways, he asked me about pig hunting in American Samoa. And I told him, pig hunting? And he said, yeah, I saw on YouTube people going there for pig hunting. And I told him straight up, there's no pig hunting in American Samoa. My whole life that I grew up there, pig hunting wasn't a thing because most pigs were domesticated. Most pigs were in pig pens. And he kept fighting me, tell me that there was pig hunting because he saw something on YouTube. And I told him, you know, these things, especially TV shows, it's probably a pig that they got from their own pig pen that they released into the wild, and they had this white guy try to track it down. So to everyone out there, please don't take everything with a grain of salt. I like to say that. Don't believe everything that you see, especially on other races, other people. It's understandable that you're trying to relate to someone, but at the same time, when you are told that there is no pig hunting in American Samoa, then understand that there is no pig hunting in American Samoa. So that's...
We do hunt bats, though.
Yeah. Bat hunting is a thing.
Yeah, that is a thing. Well, so just to recap, we're talking about stereotypes. I am your host, Johnny, and this is Tan, Harman, and T. We're signing off. Please follow us, like, and subscribe. We're on all our platforms for Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and then since my South African uncle just bought Twitter, we might be on there too. So have a good week.